Dishonored Definitive Edition is actually an incredibly fun experience with really, really fun stealth mechanics, really, really fun combat gameplay, and overall just a satisfying world that you can explore as Corvo Attano and experience the first Dishonored game in kind of a remastered kind of format. Now, I've played Dishonored 2. For those of you that know me, you'll know that I've 100%ed the sequel to this game, but I never actually played the first game. I touched on it a little bit years ago, but I never actually played any further than perhaps the first 45 minutes to an hour. And so me and my partner got Dishonored Definitive Edition a good while ago now and finally decided to go back to it. And upon returning to the game, obviously had to relearn all of the mechanics. I obviously had to get used to the controls again and the powers and the combat and the stealth. And honestly, it's just such a thoroughly enjoyable and engaging experience all at once. There's something so satisfying about planning out your next move and kind of surveying an area with enemies patrolling all over the place and kind of planning it out in your head what you're going to be doing, and then executing that then either with pure stealth and being non-lethal as you can and putting people to sleep and knocking them out, or whether it be still stealth but very, very high lethality where you go in and you drop assassinate people and you're shooting people across the map with a crossbow and summoning swarms of rats to devour them at your feet pretty much. Obviously, for those of you that play Dishonored, you know that the big kind of shtick of this game is high chaos and low chaos. So if you go around killing people all the time, you get what is considered the high chaos ending or the bad ending. Also not the canon ending either, because in these games the low chaos is usually the canon ending. And then if you go around and you don't kill people and you knock them out and you subdue the major assassination targets instead of killing them, then you get the low chaos ending, where you get the better ending. It's kind of a generally better outcome for the world itself, not just the characters. And then there's kind of in the middle where you get low or high chaos still, but some of the events will be different because you may have killed certain characters and you may have let others live. So that kind of would kind of tilt it then back and forth a little bit as well. But honestly, Dishonored is such a unique game. Like, we've had stealth games before. Obviously Assassin's Creed has always kind of been a staple of kind of the stealth genre. You've got Metal Gear Solid as well, also quite a popular stealth franchise, or at least it was, whereas Dishonored only has three games under its belt, which would be Dishonored 1, also this version of it, which is the Definitive Edition, which I'm still counting as just one game because it is the same game, it's just been improved for Xbox One. Then you've got Dishonored 2, which is a really, really good game. I'm probably not going to do a video on it because I haven't played it for 2 years, so there's no reason for me to go back to it. And then you've got the spin-off then, that was kind of the finalization after 2, which was Dishonored Death of the Outsider, which I haven't played, and that's it. That's 3 games. So it's only 3 games versus Assassin's Creed. How many have we had now? So, you know, it's not like they pumped these games out by the gallon, and it's also quite different because it's a first-person game. The other two that I compared it to just now, Metal Gear Solid and Assassin's Creed, are both third-person, whereas Dishonored puts you in the first person of Corvo Attano, or in this case, Daud, because I'm currently playing the DLC, as you can see in the video behind. So yeah, with the video on screen, I'm playing as Daud at the moment, but same gist, you are in the first-person perspective rather than the third-person perspective. And I think this was the right decision, because a lot of the time with third-person stealth games, it's a lot easier to play them, and that's obviously because you have the third-person camera angle, so you can peek around corners, you can be more risky because you have a bit of better field of vision, you can see more, you can look behind you pretty much at an instinct, on a whim. In this game, you can't do that. You have to be thoroughly aware of your surroundings at all times. You have to constantly be alert of where the enemies are, what they're doing, where they're looking. You have to constantly make sure no one's coming up behind you, but obviously you can't just flick the camera to check. You have to actually turn. Therefore, you're turning to check, but now you're leaving yourself vulnerable from the other side, and if the guard's there instead, then you've just been detected and blown cover. Now, obviously, they could have done third person if they wanted to, I personally think first person works better, but from a narrative perspective as well, such as on screen right now, we're having conversations, you're actually looking at the people you're speaking to, you're actually kind of be able to look around while you're having the conversation with them. It's not just an over-the-shoulder third person like they're talking at you. You're actually speaking to the people back and forth. They're kind of looking around, you can look around in the conversation. It's kind of a better approach narrative-wise. And also just how Dishonored works with their mechanics, so stuff like leaning. Is a really good mechanic for a stealth game where you can lean around corners, and so long as you're hiding behind something, enemies won't detect you because you're technically still hidden, but you're actually leaning out to see them. And also the combat as well is really kind of nice to fight in first person, and it's really satisfying to kind of parry enemies and instantly kill them when they're off balance, or shoot an enemy to stagger them and then finish them off with your sword. And then obviously there's the different powers as well, where you can summon swarms of rats, or you can slow down time and go around killing people, or you can just casually blink behind someone and then just kill them like that. Now obviously you can't do a lot of these things in a low chaos playthrough, so for someone like myself who tends to do the good endings first, my first playthrough is usually a stealth run without getting detected, without killing anyone, and without killing major targets as well. Which is a lot harder. Playing the game that way actually increases the difficulty immediately, because obviously you're restricting yourself in so many ways. And a lot of the time, for those kind of achievements, the easiest strategy, I know it's bad, but the easiest strategy genuinely is just to save scum, because one mistake could cost you the entire run pretty much, and that's not what you want. So it's a lot easier to just save repeatedly every time you make a move, and every time you move a little bit. And make a little bit of progress, you just make another manual save. It's just a lot safer. Now obviously, playing the game for fun, you wouldn't do that. You would just play the game, take it as it comes. If you get detected, you get detected, whatever. But when you go for achievements like I do, you want to be able to do it. You want to make it possible. I'm not out here trying to make it a challenge and trying to make it stupidly hard. If there's a way that I can make it a little bit easier by saving, just to cover myself, then I'm gonna do that. But overall, the main game of Dishonored, the story, the gameplay, the world is really, really fun. It's worth multiple playthroughs, not just for the separate endings, but just because you'll miss things. You will miss things. There will always be an area that you missed, unless you're like going for everything in one run. There's the different two different characters with the different side quests, Granny Rags and Slackjaw, completely different depending on who you help and what you do. There's obviously the world actually changing itself depending on high or low chaos. So if it's high chaos, there's more rats, there's more weepers. Low chaos, it's a lot easier to kind of get around and do things. So it's definitely worth multiple playthroughs as well, and the story itself is actually quite a good one. I think my only issue really with Dishonored story-wise is the actual start of the game, where we're kind of just thrown into the game and we're like, yes, we are this man, Corvo Attano, who is the royal protector of the Emperor. So immediately we're kind of in this situation of like, right, okay, evidently I am someone important. I am protector of an empress of this entire place, Dunwall, this entire like city basically. So yeah, you're kind of thrown in. You're like, okay, so I am relatively important in this world. And then you come back, and obviously, spoiler alert, obviously the Empress is killed right in front of you, and then you are framed for it, dragged away. Thus, the name of the game comes Dishonored, because you've been dishonored, you've been wrongly accused, you're going to be hung for treason or beheaded for treason or whatever, executed, and that is where the game gets its namesake, Dishonored. And then the whole game is Corvo going about his day, either assassinating or framing these people back in certain ways, whether that be branding them with a heretics brand, or releasing all of their secret information out on a propaganda post so everyone actually knows the crimes that they've committed, or just killing them. And that's where the game gets its namesake. Now that's fine. The one thing I just kind of don't really like about the start of the game, and I don't have this problem anywhere else, and it rectifies itself kind of quickly as well. You can tell that Emily, which is the Empress's daughter, and then the Empress herself, you can tell those are both really important people to Corvo, who we've been thrust into the boots of, really, like, immediately. But they're not of great importance to you, as the player, because you don't know them. You don't know these characters. You've been thrown into the shoes of this man, Corvo Tano, and within 5 minutes, the two people closest to him are now dead, and you're expected to kind of care about it. I don't like that. It doesn't work for me, because I don't know these characters. I don't know these people. Corvo knows these people. They mean a lot to him, and he seems pretty cool, and I am him. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I feel the same way that he does about the situation, because I've known these people all of 5 minutes. He's known them for I don't know how long. But it does kind of rectify itself quite rapidly as you kind of play the game and you speak to the outsider and things like that. It kind of becomes very, very clear how much these people mean to Corvo, and you kind of do start to feel like, yeah, this is quite rough. Like, there was obviously more going on with him and the Empress than people thought. Obviously, Emily is kind of his non-legitimate daughter, pretty much. And you start to kind of put the pieces together, and then it starts to kind of come together and be like, damn, that is actually kind of sad, And then by playing the DLC then, which is what I'm doing now, you kind of see it from the other perspective, because obviously Dowd is the person that did kill the Empress, and you see how it's eating him up inside because he regrets doing it, and he wishes he'd never taken the job. So then you see it from the other side of the coin of the person who actually ended her life, and you see him regretting it as well, which is quite interesting. And then obviously when you rescue Emily then in the main game as well, she comes back, you can kind of, like, every time Corvo sees her, he gives her a hug, and there's a scene where he wakes up after a mission, and she's in his room, and she said, like, oh, I hope you don't mind, I just couldn't sleep, but whenever you're around I can sleep, and it's really, really sweet. And then towards the end of the game then, depending on your high or low chaos, if you've done high chaos, she'll have finished a drawing for you, but it won't be his face, it'll be the mask that he wears when he goes out. Whereas if you've got a low chaos run, it'll be Corvo smiling and happy, and it'll be like a stereotypical child's drawing, and it's really, really nice. You kind of start to pick up the pieces as you go on, and you kind of start to understand why he cares about these people, or why he cared about the Empress, and you do start to genuinely feel bad because now you start to care through him. So it kind of does it retroactively, whereas at the start of the game, you're kind of like, okay, well, I don't know these people, who really cares? I just want to play the fun game of this assassin dude. This is going to be cool. But then as you play, and you find the lore, and you find books, and you find information, and you just play the story, you start to really get a sense of what he lost and what was taken from him, and you start to really understand why Corvo was on this path of revenge. Which might tilt you into the high chaos kind of run, and you might just go, yeah, do you know what, these people do deserve to die, or you might still be like, no, do you know what, I want to get the better ending, I'll stay my blade and try and do this non-lethally as best as I can. But you start to really get a sense of what these two people meant to him, and they were kind of the only two people in his life, really, that mattered. And then one of them was ripped away from him, and the other one was ripped away from him, and obviously he had to go find one, but the other one's gone forever. He can, even at the end of the game, Corvo can never get the Empress back. She is gone. That is it. She is gone. And obviously in the second game as well, I don't want to make comparisons to the second game, but like, we get the heart back again, which is the thing that you use to find runes and bone charms, if you don't know. Those are kind of like power-ups in Dishonored that you kind of need. And the heart is based off the Empress. It's her voice. It is her. So she's back, and like, it's almost kind of a sense of like, I wonder if, like, I'm not sure if it's ever stated explicitly in game, but I wonder if Corvo was kind of almost like happy in a way to be able to like kind of not so much speak to her again, but to like have her there again, which is really twisted, I know, because it's a heart with mechanical bits in it, and that's it. So she's not really there. But I've always wondered, like, did he get a kind of, was it kind of a sense of like, almost not relief, but he was just kind of grateful to hear her voice again, you know what I mean? But that's the only issue I have with the story itself, is that. But as I've said, it rectifies itself very quickly as you play the game, and you kind of start to understand why he cared about them, and then through that, then you start to care as well. With the DLCs, the Knife of Dunwall and the Bring More Witches, both really fun DLCs. It's really fun to actually play as Dowd, the assassin that killed the Empress. It's also really fun to have the kind of different powers. So he's got blink, but his blink slows down time provided you aren't moving. Therefore you can blink mid-air provided you're not moving forward or backwards and just falling, then it's fine. He's got pull, which is a really annoying power that the assassins have in the actual main game, which is awful to play against. But you get that in the Brigmore, which is just very fun. He's got a really cool animation sometimes with his crossbow, where he'll do almost like an Assassin's Creed like Easter egg, where he'll kill them with a bolt that's armed, and then he'll just rearm it instead of wasting the bolt when you sneak up on someone. That's quite cool. I'm not sure if that's an Easter egg to Assassin's Creed. It feels like it is, because it's almost identical to how the Hidden Blade works, so I feel like it is a reference or a slight nod. But the Knife of Dunwall is really good to play. It kind of lets you see more from the other side of what was going on, and it's quite interesting to play throughout the world. Knife of Dunwall while Corvo is still locked up, and then with the Brigmore Witches, then Corvo's broken out at this point. So when the Brigmore Witches comes round at this point now, you know Corvo's out and about doing his business, and obviously because you've played the main game, you know that eventually he's going to find out. So you kind of know, like, this is just before they kind of get into their little scuffly bit, and it's quite interesting to be playing it at the same timeline when Corvo's out and about doing his thing, and now you're out and about doing Dowd's thing at the same time. But it was quite interesting. It was quite nice to play from the other side and the other's perspective, and it was quite interesting as well to play the Brigmore Witches and see how they set up the story for the second game. Obviously, like I've said, it presumably is following the low chaos ending, because if it was following the high chaos, then we wouldn't have a main villain for the second game, because she'd be dead. So yeah. So it's quite interesting to see how that worked, and it was quite fun to play as Dowd as well, which I'm obviously doing on screen now. Obviously, I prefer Corvo's Folding Blade because it's cooler, but whatever. But yeah, fun DLC. Now, the only thing left for Dishonored for me to really talk about. So I've obviously talked about the main game, I've talked about the DLCs, I've talked about how the combat's quite good, it's a first-person perspective, the stealth is good, and if you're going for a really hard kind of stealth run only, no alerts, then save scumming is probably your best friend. Now, the one thing you can't cheat in this game, and it's really, really hard, is the Dunwall Trials. Now, this is the one thing on Dishonored that I really did not enjoy. Mainly because not only did you have to 3-star every single one of the trials, both the normal versions and the expert versions, but there were also specific achievements for certain trials that were very hard. Now, the trials themselves, some of them were actually quite fun. Some of them were very easily 3-starred by well over what the points were needed. Some of them, on the other hand, were almost impossible with just almost no room for error, depending on the score you needed. Well, it was always 30k, but so they weren't really that fun. Not a very enjoyable experience. Interesting idea. I just don't think the kind of achievements and stuff were kind of 3-starring maybe, yeah, okay, fair. But some of them should have been a bit more lenient. Like, some of them were some of them just left absolutely no room for error, and you'd have to play for hours at a time trying to improve and get better, and it was just ridiculous. And it really kind of spoiled the game for me a little bit, but thankfully I left the DLCs till afterwards, so I got through the trials and then I had the DLC to kind of look forward to, so it wasn't as bad. But that's like the only bad thing I can really say about Dishonored. The rest of it, like the main game and the 2 DLCs, are incredible. And if you genuinely haven't played these games before and you do like stealth games, then I highly recommend, even if you're not going for all the achievements, just experience them, because they are really good. And the second game is really, really good as well. You get to go into a new place in the second game, like a complete new place with a new story, and you get to pick between playing as Emily, who's grown up now, or you get to play as Corvo again. They all both have their separate powers, and it's just really, really interesting. So honestly, if you've never played a Dishonored game, I highly recommend them. Genuinely, like, if you haven't played the Definitive Edition as well, I highly recommend playing it. The only thing I'd make you aware of, as I've said, is if you are planning to go for 100% playthroughs, the trials can be a bit of a bore. They are very hard, and I know there's going to be some people that are really good at them. I just wasn't one of them. I've done them now. I've 100%ed this game, which is why I'm making the video. But yeah, that's my video on Dishonored. I do recommend this game. It's very, very fun. The combat is fun. The stealth is fun. The trials are a bit not fun, but if you're not going for a 100% run, then by all means, I highly recommend this game and its sequel, Dishonored 2, as well. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you're new around here and you like this sort of thing, then consider subscribing. I upload once every 2 weeks on a Sunday. Yeah, that's everything. So take it easy, guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Much love.